What's up, everybody? My name is Lee Shaner, and you're tuned into You Feel Me. In general, I don't like to do like a lot of research for my interviews, right? Because what tends to happen is you try to lead the conversation that way to where you want it to go, because then you assume that you know the person, right? But here's the thing is, like, in listening to your records, they're so kind of like a diary that now I already accidentally do feel like I know a lot of your story. So I do have a lot of questions, right? Yeah. And I'm going to try not to guide the conversation and let it go where it will. But I just want to start by saying, like, I love hearing family history, and you seem to know some of yours. So tell me about grandma from Dayton and grandpa from Houston. Yeah, because that seems to be where everything starts.
Grandma's from Pink Hill.
Yeah.
Pink Hill, grandpa's from Houston.
That's Ohio, though?
No. Pink Hill is in North Carolina.
North Carolina. Wait, but on the record, did you say Dayton or no?
I said Pink Hill.
I just misheard it.
Yeah. You know, sometimes rappers be rapping fast.
They do.
Saying a lot of information.
They
and
do.
Not a lot of time.
But that line stuck out to me. I'm like, okay, this is a man that has a family story.
Yeah.
There's some lineage here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so tell me about that. How did they meet? How did they end up where you're from?
My grandparents pretty much raised me, my brother, my sister, in Chicago. My grandfather came to Chicago. I think he's like 10 when he came to Chicago.
Okay.
My grandma, I think, came to Chicago when she was like 4 or 5 or
so
something.
So they're basically lifelong
like
Chicagoans as well.
And they, you know, every part of Chicago, we ended up on the west side of Chicago, and that's where like my generation was raised, on the west side of Chicago.
Yeah. And so what did they do for work in Chicago?
I got asked what my granddad did once, and the answer
has to be vague, or
no.
Okay.
Like, I didn't know it.
Yeah.
But he raised me, so he talked about work all the time. But he's been retired the majority of my life.
Oh yeah.
And I know he worked in a city,
Uh-huh.
but what his actual job description is something very long.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because after he heard the interview, he told me, he was like,
and you already forgot.
Yeah, I already forgot. I already forgot.
That's so funny.
But it sounded important.
Yeah.
It sounded important. I know he was a part of a lot of, you know, helping to build certain neighborhoods in the city. And just doing a lot of good things for
upstanding
like poorer
citizen.
people
Yeah.
in Chicago.
That's great.
And my grandma was always in like nursing.
Okay. Yeah, right. And so they raised you. This is your mom's side or your dad's side?
Mom's side?
Your mom's side. So how many brothers and sisters you got?
I have one brother and I have one sister.
So Joseph. One of them.
Yeah.
Right?
Joseph is my brother.
He's cool as fuck.
Yeah, today's my sister's birthday, actually.
Happy birthday to your sister.
Yeah.
Scorpio season, is that what it is? Or is it Libra?
I'm
Libra
a Cancer, so that's
I'm a Cancer too. When's your birthday?
Only thing that I know. July 17th.
Mine's July 8th.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Cancer season now. Here we go.
It's hard to keep track of all of the different.
Right. So now, why did grandma and grandpa raise you?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a good question. My parents lived there when I was like infant, like when I was a child.
Right.
My mom always like lived around the house.
Mm-hmm.
She would like she lives on the south side, so we were on the west side of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
So she would come like spend half the week with us and then half the week on the south side.
Mm-hmm.
And then my dad lived in New York. He moved to New York when I was 4 years old.
Yeah, see, I heard that on the record too.
Yeah.
Dad from New York.
Yeah, so
what was he doing out in New York?
Music.
Music,
yeah.
You talk about that as well. You're pursuing your dad's path as well with the music
funny.
shit.
Damn near everything we were about to talk about.
That's what I'm saying. Is I was like, why do I should just play the record as an interview. You like tell your whole story. It's very diaristic. So, what kind of music was your dad making?
R&B.
He's an R&B.
Yeah, R&B, neo soul. He was
how did that go?
Producing some hip hop.
Is he known?
I mean, does anybody know? You know,
kind of. I mean, I know a lot of I know a lot of musicians. You don't have to call him out if you don't want to.
Nah, he's I think my dad he did it different. He did it different than how we get to do it now.
Right.
And you know, he went
because like the '90s were just a different time.
Yeah, it was a different time, but he's still living and doing great things off of music. You know, he's still singing, and that's you know how he pays for everything, and you know handles his life and everything. So you know,
guys in contact, close contact, yeah.
Yeah, I'm super close with everybody in my family. Really,
that's great.
Yeah.
So was him pursuing music like a big influence of yours? Is that like
Absolutely.
where the drive came from?
Because it was like as much as it was like as a kid, like I used to cry every day when my dad left.
Mm-hmm.
But also as a kid, I feel like it was a sense of understanding. Because like just being a kid and like being like. Well, he loves to do music, so he's going to do music. So
yeah,
I gotta respect it. You know,
that's hard.
Yeah, it was
but
hard,
also
but
like,
it also was like super inspiring for me because I'm like he wasn't afraid.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't afraid, and you know, of course, there's gonna be sacrifices, but I don't think our, you know, obviously the time that we got to spend growing up was sacrificed.
Yeah.
But I don't think the love or anything like that was ever sacrificed. Like you know, my dad was always really
attentive.
You know, like the conversations that we
yeah.
had were all like important enough to where I feel like I got here where I am now, like just based off some of the conversations that I had with my dad as a kid. So it put a sense of fearlessness into you know into me, like even since then, like at a young age.
That's great, man, because I talk to a lot of artists whose dads like bail and they just never hear from him again, and that's why they become musicians. But it's like your dad pursued and stayed in contact, which is which is more than a lot of dads do. You feel me? Yeah. And so now, what is the difference, kind of like sociologically, between the west side of Chicago and the south side of Chicago? Like where your grandparents were and where your mom was.
That shit just far.
It's far? Is it far?
It's far? I mean, it's far for me. I'm sure south side will tell you the west side is far.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something to compare it to. It's almost like being maybe that's not a good analogy because I don't know enough about it. But I feel like I'm in LA, so maybe it's like being a Laker fan versus being a Clipper fan. I would imagine. Well, the Clippers, you know, it's hard. Imagine if the Clippers were like
here's the thing
winning
about
championships.
If
you know.
when the teams suck, nobody pays attention to either of them. You know what I'm saying? So
but
I get it. So like one team probably roots for the Sox and one roots for the Cubs or something.
Basically,
right.
Basically, there's a lot of subtle differences and everything. I'm trying to be a part of the. I'm trying to be a part of the future wave of like not hating on the south side. You know, I
is the south side where the suburbs are? Is it south suburbs or what is that?
No, Chicago's big.
Chicago's
big. So it's like I mean, there are south suburbs, there are west suburbs. I went to school in the west suburbs.
Yeah.
But it's just a big place. It's my mom lives 40-something minutes away.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So you hop on the train to get there? Or what would you do?
I mean, she would be coming every I'm not going
every
out
day.
there. Yeah,
right.
You
that
know,
makes sense.
every week we would see our mom. Like we always had a close connection with our mom. When we was kids, she lived there. So it was like she didn't move until we were like a little older, like teenagers.
So now, what were you like in school? You said you went in the west suburbs. Were you into school? Because the way you write seems like pretty. I mean, you're like kind of a genius when it comes to the writing shit. So like,
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I did do great at school pretty early.
And then you got bored.
Basically.
That's what happens to geniuses.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to kind of learn about what I wanted to learn about, and the things that just weren't interested in me. Like I was never good at like math and history, and like I was actually never really even good at like reading and things like that. But writing is where my like passion and where I really excel. But I was able to. I feel like I don't necessarily consider myself like I'm far from the smartest person in the world or anything like that. And I'm far from like super book smart, but I think with school, there's a system, and I felt like I figured out the system and like
how to game it.
Yeah, and I was able to get damn near straight A's for a lot of my school career. High school, I got a few C's and things like that, but when I went to college, I was getting like literal straight A's.
Yeah.
I did 3 semesters, and then it was kind of like, this is plenty.
Right. I find it interesting that you say like, "Oh, I'm not the smartest person in the world," because I think a lot of people, I'm sure a lot of fans hit you up and tell you like, "Yo, man, you're like the smartest person I've ever listened to rap," or like, you know what I mean, like, give me your advice, whatever, like, because you have sort of a sagely presence on your records. But what I found in talking like to hundreds of rappers over my fucking lifespan is that like some of the dudes who come off the most serious on record are often just getting all the like smart shit they need to say off their chest so they could be like goofy and funny in real life, right?
Yeah.
So like maybe that's like, is that not your personality in real life? You're kind of more just easygoing?
Yeah, I'm pretty easygoing, but I think I think there's levels to it. Like I think everything that I put in the music is like an honest representation of myself, but I also think, I haven't made every song that I'm going to make yet. So it's like there's still other sides and other things about my personality that'll be on record that maybe just haven't been made yet, and things like that. But it's like a growing thing, because I think that's the other thing. Like the reason that I really like the fact that I've been recording for so long is like I can listen to what I was thinking when I was 15. Like I can just press play on it. Yeah. I can hear what I was thinking when I was 18, and like some of the thoughts line up to what I think now, and some of them I could look, oh man, that's like so embarrassing. Yeah, that's so embarrassing. But
I mean, that's the best sign of artistic growth is when you look back at your old work and you go, oh fuck, that's
I look back at a lot of my old work and I'm like, man, this is still hot.
Yeah. right.
This could have been something. I think artists a lot of times it's just the voice. Like, our voices change so much over the span of a career. Yeah. So it's sometimes like cringeworthy, like listening to what you used to sound like. Yeah. But sometimes I listen to my old stuff, I'm like, the idea, like I could hear the idea, like it maybe wasn't executed as flawlessly
like maybe
as
the
I would like it to be.
As perfect, or the syllable placement is perfect. But
you were on to something.
Yeah. You were figuring it out.
Right.
Yeah. So is that when you started recording at 15? Or earlier than that?
I started recording when I was like 9.
When you were 9?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the thing that I like.
Yeah.
I'm
I can
blown
play
my
my 9-year-old self. I listened to what he was talking about. He wasn't talking about nothing, but I can hear him.
What was 9-year-old self talking about?
He wasn't really even using real words.
Really?
Yeah, no.
He making up shit?
Okay.
Like,
this is a rap.
Yeah. Hey, you're figuring it out.
Yeah.
So that's what blows my mind, though, about kind of the democratization of music recording over the last, 15 years or so, right? That a 9-year-old had access to be able to make a rap song. Yeah. Like, when you're that age, right? One, like, why? Why did you want to rap? And two, how did you figure out how to record a song?
Let's see. I wanted to do it. I don't know, really. I watched my dad do music. I watched my grandfather do music. I watched my uncle do music, and it just like I don't know. I felt like I kind of developed a passion through just watching them.
Mm-hmm. You just had it in you.
That's what it felt like. And I remember my mom taught me how to play "Mary Had a Little Lamb" on the piano. Yeah. And I went to my great grandmother's house, who had like this giant piano. And it was like a toy piano that I learned Mary Had a Little Lamb. So I seen that the notes like lined up like the same, like it was modeled after a real piano. So I was like, oh, I wonder if you play it the same on this one. And then I played it, and my great grandma was like hella impressed. Like, oh, he's 7 and he can play Mary Had a Little Lamb. I'm like, and she ended up giving me the piano.
Really?
And that was when I kind of was like, well, I guess I can like start trying to like make beats now. So I got a like, it wasn't really a toy. It's like Casio. I got old Casio from one of my grandma's friends. Yeah. And it had like some drum sounds. It had like some leads. It had all types of sounds on it. I wish I still had it, honestly.
Was it like you press a button and there's a drum pattern already, and then you had to like slow it down to make it rap tempo?
No, how we was doing it. Which I got a 4-track cassette recorder for Christmas that year from my grandfather on my father's side.
As a 9-year-old.
Yeah. As an 8-year-old.
Wow.
And
they were really like lining you up for your future.
Yeah. And they didn't realize it. Like it was like, this is just seemed like some shit he liked to do. So let's try this.
Yeah.
I would press record, and then I would just play it out.
Plunk stuff out.
Yeah. There was like no looping or anything like that. I would just kind of play it for what felt like 3 minutes. Yeah. For what was really like 30 seconds.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. On the 4-track.
Yeah. And then you would, and then I would go to the next track, maybe make a little piano thing, go to the next track, maybe do a bass, and then I gotta save a track for when I'm ready to rap.
Yeah.
And then, you know, when I turned 9, I got some more equipment, and I was able to route it back into it. So I was able to use my first 4 tracks and then route it back in to where I put the first 4 tracks on one track, and I had 3. That was when I got into layering and things like that. 'Cause I used to listen to Bone Thugs and Harmony when I was a kid. That was what inspired me to rap.
Yeah.
And their shit was always just layered crazy. You couldn't really understand them. So that's why I wasn't really using real words or anything like that. I was just doing
because
layers.
a lot of when you were listening, to them,
I was
a lot
just
of shit
using layers and things like that.
Right.
So that was really what got me into music. Like, you know,
that's I'm like boggled that you were figuring that out as a 9-year-old, because like I live in LA, right, and I came up in like the LA rap scene, and like the whole LA underground was built on like 4-track tapes, right? But it was like grown men figuring that shit out and how to like reproduce it. It wasn't 9-year-olds, you know what I'm saying? That makes me wonder too, like being the age that you are, did you grow up like fully immersed in the internet? Like, were you on the internet from an early age?
Nah. I got on the internet, I guess, kind of early compared to some of like my friends. I probably started using the internet. I remember my brother, when he was going to high school, he it was like St. Joe's High School in Westchester, Illinois.
Shout out St. Joe's.
Yeah. Shout out to St. Joe's. There was a like initiative that they were doing where to go there, all of the students had to get this specific laptop. And this is like, he was like a part of the first class where they did that. So he had a laptop now. So when he got his laptop, we was like stealing neighbors' Wi-Fi, downloading Fruity Loops and things like that.
Fruity Loops is the gateway drug.
Yeah. It really was.
Yeah. I've had a lot of conversations on this podcast about Fruity Loops. Like,
I bet it's such a, like, you know what I'm saying, as far as like the last 10 years of making music, maybe even more than that. Yeah. But it's really been such an instrumental, like,
almost
for lack of a better term,
almost 20 years now. Yeah,
like damn near 20.
Yeah, I think it came out maybe like 98, 99.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So you downloaded Fruity Loops and then started figuring out how to like program the sequencer.
Because once we had sequences, it was kind of like a rap. Like, because we weren't able to loop. We were just kind of like, we got to play the whole beat out. So our songs would be super short. But once we figured out we could loop things, it was a rap. And my grandfather had a studio as well. Not the grandfather that I live with, but my dad's dad. Your dad's
dad? He was a musician too?
Yeah.
What kind of music was he making?
Like funk.
Oh, wow.
Like, like super funky stuff.
Hell yeah.
But
was he like a multi-instrumentalist, or did he have like
he played guitar.
He played guitar.
Guitar was his shit. But he had like a motif, a big ass motif X8 or something. I don't know. But I learned the sequencer on that. So that was my first time using anything where I was like able to track and like, you know, like not have to play it out. Like, my uncle was off the MPC. My uncle was super hip hop.
Oh yeah.
So he was doing like chop, sped up, sample type beats with like crazy drums.
Did he work with any generational artists in Chicago? I mean, like, are you gonna be like, oh yeah, my uncle used to like, he mentored No ID, or like No ID mentored him or some shit?
Nah, but No ID knows he knows my family.
Yeah,
you
right.
know, yeah, he knows.
So Chicago's a small artist town. Yeah. That's tight, man. Damn, I'm blown away. Like, everybody that I talk to from Chicago starts so young. Like, you guys are just like immersed in music there. Because I always am wondering, like, what's in the water in Chicago that you guys have this expansive and diverse scene going on. Like, there are so many artists in different subgenres coming out of there, you know what I mean? And like I was asking Kwaku about that, like how is it that like everybody dropped at the same time that didn't necessarily know each other but have this kind of cohesive sound that works together and like defines like, this is Chicago, you know? That was a rambling, vague question.
I think Chicago is interesting because there's so much happening in it. You know? It's a place where, you know, it's like one of the biggest cities. And it's so interesting because it's so, you know, on this block it's fine. You know, this block is completely different. You know, the next block is completely different. Like, it's so many different neighborhoods and like different areas. And everything is really like, you know, like being in Chicago, you kind of really have to learn how to move properly in Chicago. And I think the
Like what, be a chameleon of sorts, or like just know how to like
just know where you're
adjust.
supposed to be and when you're supposed to be there and things like that. Like a lot of it is, you know, being in the right place at the right time, but you know, it takes being in the wrong place a few times to really know where you're supposed to be. And I think Chicago is like, it's just really an interesting place because it was like, I would say around like 2011, 2012, like all of us kind of ended up in the same place.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Where was it? Columbia College?
It was around the corner from Columbia College at a library.
Yeah.
We ended up at a library that hosted an open mic, and that was kind of where
What was it called?
U-Media. The open mic was called Lyricist Loft.
Okay.
But the program was called U-Media.
So who were names that you would see around there?
That's where I met No Name, I met Chance, I met Vic Mensa, I met Alex Wiley, Kimbe, I met Mick Jenkins there.
Yeah.
I met Lucky X. I met I don't know. Everybody pretty much that has ever rapped in Chicago.
Not to sound like a cornball, but like that. Okay, so like I got the spine tingles hearing that because like okay now that finally makes sense to me. You know what I mean? Because I've asked everybody like how like what is it with you Chicago kids? Like how do you guys got such a strong scene? And nobody's told me about that open mic. I didn't know about that, the Lyricist Loft. Yeah. So that's like 2011, so like
2011, 2012. That's when I went there. You know, some of them were there for longer,
earlier.
Some of them came later, but that's
so like contextually what was happening in rap at that time was like Odd Future had just broke, TDE is starting to be on the come up, and so like LA has this kind of like cool new art scene coming up. And were you guys inspired by that? Like was that an influence at all?
I can't speak on everybody else.
Yeah.
But for me and like Pivot, which is like my crew or whatever, we didn't really pay that much attention to what everybody else was doing. I think for us, because we had been making music for years already at the point, like by 2011, we already had been making music at least since like 2008, maybe, something like that, like together. So by then it's like we already kind of have a general goal of like how this is gonna go. But when we started going to the library, that's when we realized like, oh shit, there are other people in the city that are like doing similar things or like moving similarly or like So that's when we started like collabing and like reaching out and things like that. But you know, all respect to
of course.
You know,
I wasn't trying to put you on the spot with that. I was just trying to think back, like, because I remember thinking like in 2011, like, oh, the rap world is changing. You know what I mean? It was
definitely,
like,
definitely.
It was like all of a sudden there were a lot of extra lanes opened up. You know what I mean? Which, whether or not you're influenced by that, it's still got to be inspiring to see like outsider art starting to succeed.
I think with just rap in general or just artistry. It's like one of those things where you hear so much growing up about how crazy and how outlandish and how impossible it is. That it's like it's such a discouraging field to try to take on.
Right.
So when you see anybody, whether you're a fan or not, when you see anybody do it successfully, it's like it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like you just lifted something off of your shoulders. So like, you know, bravo, because it's like, you know, it's such a task, but it's like,
pipe
you know,
dream.
right.
And if somebody figures out that code, how to crack it, like,
you just
it's that much more inspiring.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, exactly. You just want to witness it. You know, you just want to witness it.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to me a little bit about your brother. He's a little older than you, so I would imagine he was like it. I have a younger brother, and he was always trying to like bite my shit. You feel me? He was he was inspired by whatever I was inspired by. So did Joseph have good taste in music growing up, and was he passing that down to you too?
Yeah.
Like, was he a cool older brother?
He was a cool older brother. We weren't that close when I was a kid, like when I was like really young.
Yeah.
But we got closer when he went to high school. Like when I got to high school, that's when we became like
he's like a senior, you're like a freshman or something like that.
Yeah, he was a senior and I was a freshman.
Yeah.
And but I mean before that, like we've never been like
at each
or
other's
anything
head,
like that. But it was just like we weren't as close because our interests, like me and Joe, which I'm sure you could probably tell even just from seeing him, like we're so different.
I was gonna say, like, even though I'm sure you guys' life experience has been similar. It seems like you guys compartmentalize your emotions in different ways.
We're completely different, and
even in listening to you guys' music, you can tell that you guys process things differently.
A lot of people think I'm saying he's my brother, like, you know what I'm saying, like that's my brother, that's my bro,
homie,
you know what I'm saying? But nah, we got the same mom, same dad, and everything. But yeah, he did have a lot of like, I don't know, he was just different.
Yeah.
He was just different. He was never like afraid of being who he was.
To be himself.
Yeah, like he always, like, even if you listen to his music, like he's always been super different, super
Yeah, he's out there, huh?
Yeah. He's out there. So it's like growing up and, you know what I'm saying, being under that, it's just another level of fearlessness. You know what I'm saying?
I was gonna say it's gotta be comforting to know that, like, you know, my brother can be out here clowning this way or that way, and like being himself and comfortable in his skin, and that's gotta feel as inspiring as your dad pursuing his music dream.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Yeah. And so while you guys are like, other than Bone Thugs, like, did you guys have favorites? Like, did he pass down any gems to you? Or put you on to anybody?
What was he bumping heavy? Nelly Furtado.
Oh yeah.
I got really hip to Nelly Furtado because of him.
You're
playing
Like a Bird?
The Loose album.
Oh, okay.
The one where Timbaland did the tracks.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, Like a Bird, you know, fire. He was playing Amy very heavily.
Yeah.
He was Amy
yeah.
Winehouse.
Yep.
He was off the Back to Black wave.
Of course.
But he got me hip to the Frank wave, which I was more of a Frank fan. He was more of a Back to Black fan. But you know what I'm saying? It could mutually.
That song, Fuck
exist.
Me Pumps or whatever, is that what it is?
My shit was October song.
Okay,
I still listen to that shit every day.
Yeah, Frank is.
I'm trying to think of other things. Gorillas, I got hip to the Gorillas from him.
Did you fuck with Raphael Sadiq's throwback wave that same time as Amy was cracking, like Raph Sadiq was doing his thing too? It was
Raphael Sadiq. I really like. I got hip to Raphael Sadiq like hella late just because of his rap features.
Oh yeah.
That was like my introduction to Raphael Sadiq. And then I remember once I was playing I think I was playing the Kid Cudi song Balmain Jeans with him on it. And my mom came in and my mom was
like,
"Oh,
Raphael Sadiq,
yeah. You know, that's her shit. Yeah,
I don't know why I brought him up, but he's had such a storied career. But at that time that Amy Winehouse was popular, he was like doing the very similar thing, like that kind of throwback soul shit. Yeah. And I remember at that time in my life, like listening to both of them so heavily at the same time. Yeah,
that's tight.
So, I mean, here's the thing is that I understand you've been working on music since you was 9 years old, but you also had to be doing, like, other shit. So, like, what kind of normal childhood shit were you in? Nothing?
Not
you guys didn't go, like, ride
mostly...
bikes or play sports or nothing?
We rode bikes. We lived in a hood. I'm trying to think of how many times I got my bike stolen as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds
my
like...
My shit got stolen... Once my shit got stolen, I told my stepdad, and we literally just walked down the street and got it back. It was actually way easier than I thought it would be.
You thought I was like,
I was crying and shit. I'm like, man, they got my bike. I see them, they right there, and he was like, chill. I'm thinking he gonna have to do something crazy.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, no, you know, it's
you're like, Dad, get the strap.
Right. I'm thinking it's that time. Like, are we going to war? Like, you know what I'm saying? We just walked over there, and he was like, hella nice. He was like, hey man, that's my little man bike.
Yeah.
And then it was like a misunderstanding where one of they homies told them it was their bike, and then
they didn't think it was stolen
because these were like older kids. You know what I'm saying? Once I tweaked. I don't remember why I did this, but I pulled up on the front porch of my house, riding my bike. I just left the bike right there and went in the house.
Yeah.
For like 20 minutes. And then I walked back. I'm like, fuck, of course it's gone. Like, why did I just do that? I left the front door open and everything. I don't remember why I was in such a rush, but that was
that.
Yeah. And then the last time my bike got stolen, it didn't really get stolen. My grandma just got rid of them. She like, y'all are old now. Y'all don't need these. Y'all haven't rode y'all bike in so long.
Yeah, right.
I just like, it took me months to realize. I'm like, Grandma, where the bikes at?
Yeah.
Like, there's just no bikes here. Like,
right.
yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah, what did I do? I was into cartoons a lot. I thought that's what I would do. I thought I would make cartoons.
You used to draw too? Visual artist?
I used to draw.
Who were your characters that you would draw?
It was abstract shit mostly. I would start drawing shapes and seeing what they turn into. Yeah. I tried to do the comic book shit. It wasn't really. I don't think I had the focus to do it because for me, like going from one scene to the next scene, it was like such a challenge, like to just visually show that, like, you know what I'm saying, it's small, like mine. I tried to make a cartoon when I got to high school. I tried when I got
like
Windows,
to animate it.
I tried to do it with paint.
Oh, MS Paint.
What was that?
With like MS Paint, Microsoft.
Yeah.
That seems like a lot of work.
Yeah. I tried to do it with that and Windows Movie Maker. I was using those.
Oh yeah.
To
How did it go?
I probably got like a 13-second thing.
Yeah.
And it was bad.
It was bad. I mean, it's interesting that you're telling me you didn't have the concentration to make the story move along in a comic book, because I would say as a rapper, you're like quite the storyteller. You really paint a visual picture.
I think the words are more my speed. Like visually, I kind of, I'm lost a lot of times. Like a lot of times for me, I don't see the picture. I'd like hear the picture or like have to physically write out the picture, and it kind of just like moves in chronological order.
That's interesting because I always felt like that. Like I was telling you off air, when I used to rap, right? And it came time to make music videos, I could never see the song as a video. Like, do you have that issue? Do you like just trust your directors?
No,
or
sometimes
do you write the treatments?
I do have that issue a lot of times, honestly. And that's the thing that I'm kind of trying to just allow myself the headspace, because when I was a kid, I used to be super visual. And then it had just been so many years of not sharpening the tool where I think it kind of just phased itself out of my brain. But yeah, always having directors that you trust is, you know, is key.
Otherwise, you end up making some embarrassing shit.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for me, I don't always know what I want.
Yeah.
But I do always know what I don't want.
Right.
So it definitely allows for you know, the directors to get imaginative.
Yeah.
But I am is way, like, I feel like mentally my brain is just way more ready to just write no on everything.
Right, to give it. Well,
you know what I'm saying?
And it's hard because like you know who you are internally, even though you might not be able to spell it out perfectly. And so
I'm just like, then, just get it.
Right,
just
but then a director, the director thinks they know who you are too, but some of those writing choices that they make might not vibe with your character, right?
Exactly. So it's just communication. It's just communication. It's the same a lot of times, like with a lot of artists and their producers. Like for me, growing up producing a lot of stuff myself, it just changed so much as far as like how my music is able to grow now, because I'm able to be involved in the production. Because you can go
Quincy Jones it, and you can speak the language. Like you might not be producing it, but you can help arrange it and get things how you want.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times I am. What I like to do is I like to start the production. I maybe come up with like a chord progression, do some like simple drums and track to that. Yeah. And then sometimes I'll bring the other two producers that I mostly work with, Day and Daoud. They did the whole Care For Me joint with me. Yeah. They'll come in after sometimes, and sometimes it'll be different where they might have started something.
It's important to have if you're a starter, it's important to have somebody that can finish.
It's just real hands-on as far as like, you know, taking my ideas and turning them into what my idea was supposed to, you know what I'm saying?
Making them come into fruition.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's great. So it was just three of you that produced that whole joint?
Yeah.
I mean, that explains why it sounds so cohesive, and it sounds big, but it sounds like you did it, like you made it big without a budget. Does that make sense? Yeah. Like it's like you guys made the most of what you had?
Yeah. I mean, that's how it is for any independent artist.
Absolutely.
You know? You gotta be able to make a big pit. You know, you got to make the most of the moment. A lot of independent artists don't get to that level. So I knew that I wanted to make, like, what I was focused on when I was making that was really just being honest and like being something I could be super proud of. But I was like really focused on making a masterpiece. Like I wanted a classic. And that's what, you know, some of the choices, like that's the reason why there's not that much like current sound selection, like choice. Like we were very specific with the sound choices, the chord progressions, like everything was just honest, and that was why we, you know, made certain choices.
So let me ask you this on a personal level, like having released an album that you did put so much of yourself into, because like I said, after listening to it, I feel like I knew who you are as a human, right? Even having never talked to you. So it's very personal, it's very revealing. And it's like extremely well done. So how do you feel now that you've released that baby into the world? Like how do you feel the response has been back? Are you happy with it? Does it feel anticlimactic, or does it feel like everything that you hoped for?
It's hard to say because it's
Still
you know,
pretty new.
An album is a thing that it grows forever. You know,
it does. Yeah,
it grows forever, and it's been, I don't know how many months. It dropped in April.
Yeah.
But
7 months.
7 months. I don't even know. November.
You know why I know that? Because I got a puppy that was born in April, and he's 7 months old.
Okay, nice,
so 7 months. Yeah,
nice. But yeah, it's one of those things that it's always growing, so it's hard to really say. But I know I'm appreciative and just super grateful for everything we've been able to accomplish.
Yeah.
Since dropping it, because it was really like just our team,
a labor of love.
Yeah, and we just made it happen, and since then things have really been moving rather quickly.
Yeah.
So
I really feel like as this album does continue to grow and mean more to more people, I think people are gonna look back and talk about it in the same sense that they talk about like Kendrick records. Like to me, it's like on the level with like a Damn or something like that. You know what I mean? It might not have the like big radio push, but I think like as far as a revealing personal record with astute technical ability, like you're there. You know what I'm saying?
I appreciate that. I think it's one of those things where like I know my capability. I know what the album sounds like. I know, where it should sit. Yeah. In terms of albums that came out this year or in terms of albums ever, really. Yeah. And I know how I feel about it. But it's one of those things where, because you're not a name, people look at it differently, because a lot of people, when you're listening to a new artist or your friends trying to put you on something that they like, a lot of times you listen to it from a critiquing standpoint. Like, oh, yeah, he sounds weird. He sounds... And
because you're natural...
Where's the lisp?
Yeah. Your natural instinct when your friend puts you onto something, if you're trying to be up on shit, is to be like, man, he can't know about this before I do. This probably, this shit probably ain't that
this
tight.
Shit not that hot. Yeah,
I would have found out about it first.
Just with new artists in general, I feel like that's where a lot of people look at them like they're looking for what's he doing wrong. Mm-hmm. Whereas once someone becomes a name, because people did the same shit with like all of these guys that are like on top of the world right now. Yeah. Until you become a name, and I know that, and I respect that, and that's why I feel like I make certain decisions that I make, because I know it's only a matter of time. Like I'm not.
That's right.
I try not to be offended, when people say certain things on the internet and things like that, because I just know.
You read the comments?
I try not to, but I do sometimes, because a lot of times my comments are mostly all positive. It's mostly all love down there, and sometimes like if I'm having a like rough day or something, or I'm just feeling discouraged, sometimes I'll go read them, and it
feels good to read a DM that says like, "Yo, man, your album saved my life."
Yeah, exactly. And with an album like Care For Me, like I get a lot of those. I'm sure. Yeah,
that's gonna be. I mean, you're gonna get a lot of like, bro, this changed my life, and like you helped me get through this and that, or like I was suicidal before I heard this, that type of shit. Like I can imagine. Yeah, so it's it's one of those things where I do try not to read it, because I don't want to depend on it. Yeah, it's one of those things where it could gas you up.
It could gas you up. You can get addicted to that shit. You can need that shit.
That validation.
And I don't want to need the validation, but
well, and also reading that kind of stuff, if you start to hear those footsteps of like, oh, this is what people are expecting from me, maybe it's harder to try something else. Maybe you'll only want to keep making personal records, whereas like perhaps you have a fun record sitting in the bank. You know what I'm saying? Like
for me, I would say like I don't really care what people expect, because like even making Care For Me, people didn't expect that. Right. Like going from the album before that, going from Bucket List to Care For Me, like people was expecting something more like Bucket List, but I never want to be the type of artist that puts out the same album. You know what I'm saying? If I already did something, I already did it. I explored it. It's out. It's done. So
on to the next.
There's no Care For Me 2 or anything like that. Like it's just on to the next thing.
Yeah. What was Pivot Gang always in the back of you guys' mind when you started, or like where did Pivot Gang come from?
Pivot Gang, I would say Pivot Gang officially became a thing in like 2011.
Around that time you started going to the library. Yeah. And was that a reaction to seeing everybody else already crewed up? Like, oh, no, man, we gotta save money. We
were already crewed up.
Yeah.
We were already crewed up. Like everybody who was in Pivot was already at my grandmother's house, like every day. That's where the studio was at. We were already there doing that. We were just a different name.
What was the name back then?
The Rally. We were the Rally.
Where did the Rally come from, and why did it change to Pivot?
The Rally was myself, Joseph, and Mello. and there was a few other guys, but it was all people who we went to high school with.
At St. Joe's?
Yeah, Joe's. And it was like a training camp in a sense. Like we made a bunch of music that we never put out.
Yeah.
A bunch of music, you know, and
you guys were shedding as the jazz musicians would say.
That's where we were really learning how to make music and how to rap and how to do all of these things. Pivot was us three, the three remaining members from the rally.
Yeah.
And then our guy Fresh, who we've known, because Fresh did a feature when we were at a rally when I was probably like 13 or something like that.
Yeah.
So he's always been like a distant, you know what I'm saying, like a MySpace friend away.
Yeah, right.
And we were in the same neighborhood and everything, so we would see him around. But when we started doing, what would happen was me, Joe, and Mello, the rally, we're doing songs with Fresh and like everybody else in Pivot, and it would just be like Joseph featuring Saba, MF and Mello, Fresh Water, like just writing hella names. And then we like, once it was like 13 of those, it's like, this is clearly like a thing. Yeah, this is clearly a thing. And then when we started like moving around, I remember our first show as Pivot, where it kind of became like official. We had we were supposed to have a 10-minute set. Yeah. Opening for Hobson.
Oh, yeah.
At Reggie's Rock Club in Chicago. One of my homies that I went to high school with had like a plug on the show and was like, hey, I can get you and your crew.
Did y'all make your own T-shirts?
Nah.
Okay, that's a good mistake not to make.
We literally didn't even know what our name was.
Yeah.
That was like when it was like we all looked at each other because we were like about to go on. And then he's like, what do we call you? And then he's like, call us the Pivot Gang. And
who said it? Like, where did it come from?
So the day before, Joe had put that in a rap.
Oh, okay.
Joe, you know, there's that episode of Friends where Ross is moving the couches up. And Joe said, this, exactly. Yeah. And Joe said, this the friend movement, moving couches, call us the Pivot Gang.
Oh,
and that was the rap line. So the next day we were like, well, shit, call us the Pivot Gang.
That's tight.
Yeah. And our set got cut from 10 minutes to like 2 minutes.
Really?
But we went out there and we performed that one song.
Yeah.
You know, were
you guys were juiced to get your first stage time, or what? Was that that wasn't your like first show?
No, that wasn't our first show. Our dad is.
Where'd you cut your teeth?
Our dad is a madman, and he would be hosting these open mics. Yeah. In New York, where him and his band come out, they play. A bunch of people are there. They're getting drinks. Sometimes it's a packed house and everything. And sometimes me and my brother would be the only underage people there. I was probably like 15 or so. Yeah. And he would just be like, he would like call us on the stage, like call us out.
Would he tell people like, "Oh, these are my boys," or would he just like, "Oh, hey, y'all rap"?
Nah, yeah. It was like that, like coming to the stage,
like Billy Hoyle, you guys from like just.
It was basically
you
like
guys were the ringers,
right? It was basically like we got some rappers in the building today, like, and it was on the microphone, like we didn't talk about it, we didn't practice it, and the band is just like, they might have played like something they know. A lot of times it was like tribe beats or something like that, and we would just come up, spit a verse. But that was where I feel like, because I used to hate performing, I used to look down and everything.
Really?
Like, yeah.
So would you and Joe like go up there and be doing routines, or was it like freestyling, or like would you go back?
No, because we already had songs that we did as the rally. Yeah. So we would just spit our verses, and sometimes we would sometimes we would spit the hook or something like that. That's where we learned how to do like crowd participation and things like that. Because performing at bars or like drunk, you know what I'm saying?
That's
like,
all you gotta lean on that.
Not,
shit.
Yeah. It's not really like they're listening to rap. But it's definitely one of those things where that was really like the boot camp for us, and then doing the open mics every week, it really like it turned me into a better performer. And the same with Joe and everybody else in Pivot. We really had to do it to really get better at it.
Yeah. In listening to you guys' music, you and your brother, right? Mm-hmm. It sounds like you guys spent a lot of time like on the porch, viewing what was happening in the neighborhood, right? Yeah. And you guys seen some wild shit just in the neighborhood, right? Yeah. So I guess my question is like, I don't even know what the question is. I just like the fact that you guys saw so much on the porch. Did you guys feel like leaving the porch was perhaps like not the safest thing to do? Were you guys kind of housebound as kids, or did you have free reign over the neighborhood?
We weren't necessarily housebound, but our grandparents was basically like, you got to stay on the block.
Yeah.
Like, don't go to the next block. Don't go around the corner. And we would have to ask to, like, do things like that. But, when we were growing up, there were a lot of kids our age on the same block. So we had, like, tons of friends. We had the rim in our backyard. So everybody was at our house, like, every day, like 8 in the morning sometimes, like, knocking on the door, like, trying to play ball.
The rim is a basketball hoop for you squares that don't know.
Right. So it was, sometimes like some of the OGs in the neighborhood are like hear us playing ball and like come like, that shit was always hilarious.
So you could hoop or what?
Drunk. Yeah, I can hoop a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm decent.
All
decent,
right. Okay.
I don't know. I feel like I'm at a point where I don't really like talking trash no more. I only like talking to trash against people who I seen ball.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it's a dangerous game, and I never want to be that guy. You can't
let your mouth write a check that your ass can't cash.
Exactly. But I get my victories, is what I'll say.
Yeah.
My victories.
Yeah. So here's the thing: is that we've obviously got more than enough material here, and we could end now. But for my own personal sake, I'm curious if you would like to go here, and if not, we'll edit this part out. But you have a story that you tell on the record towards the end about meeting a cousin of yours down the block that you didn't even know lived down the block.
Yeah.
Walter. Yeah.
Yeah.
That prom story, is that a true story?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so like, tell me about that, finding out that your cousin lives right down the street, and then just kind of like tell me the story of Walter, because like it seems as though over the last 2 years that has been a huge influence and tragedy that you guys have been going through, and it seems to inspire a lot of music. So, and if you, like I said,
I could keep it brief because I don't want to get like super bummed out or anything. But Walt was my older cousin. Is my older cousin. And I just remember him from all like the family functions. Like he was like bigger than me, but he was only 2 years older than me, but he was like much bigger. And he used to like
bully you?
He used to kind of bully me.
Was he like a bad kid or what?
No. He was a great kid for other kids. You know what I'm saying? Other kids, but me specifically, I remember he used to take my shoes and run around the house. And that was like the one thing, and it wasn't even like I was getting beat up or anything like that, but that shit used to drive me crazy. Like, take my shoes and just run.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, like, again. So when I was a kid, he wasn't like my favorite. He was far from my favorite cousin or anything.
Right.
And then
you're like, oh, fucking Walter.
Right. Like, oh, we gotta see this thing.
Yeah.
But as I got older, like when we started going to like, I don't know, I was probably like 7th, 8th grade when I started like seeing him out, because now I'm going to like I used to hate going to parties, but I used to go just because I felt like I was supposed
functions,
to.
Whatever.
Yeah. And I was like, whoa, we got a lot of mutual friends and things and whatnot now. And then after graduation, we ended up in a scholarship program together.
Yeah.
For going to high school, and we had to go to this summer school program at Fenwick, and it was crazy because Walt lived down the street. And I was getting a ride every day, and he was taking a bus home because we just didn't know that, I didn't know that he lived,
that's wild. Like, that's why the house confinement thing was, I was like, how you got a cousin that lived down the street you don't know?
That shit was kind of wild. But Walt was actually, one of those founding like Pivot Gang members, and a real important piece of what he
was there at the library.
Yeah, he was definitely at the library. And he introduced me to a lot of people that I didn't know prior. And he was really like, I feel like I got my confidence from hanging with him. Yeah. Because when I started going to college, that's where I got my swagger. Like,
was he somebody that could like kind of talk to anybody or what?
Yeah, he could talk to anybody. Like everybody.
I mean, just the way you describe him on prom, it sounds like he's like the spoon that stirs the pot. You know what I'm saying? Like, he could talk to people and get people to click up or whatever.
He was just super, super cool, but also in a way where it's like, you're not going to disrespect him. You're not gonna, you know what I'm saying? Like, he had a lot going on for himself at a young age. So when we was going to college, he was going to college down the street from where my college was at, and both of us was on the same commute. We had a similar schedule. So I just started kicking it with him every day, and when he started rapping and everything, we just kicked it every day. So I feel like just hanging with him, I you know what I'm saying, I kind of started, I built that confidence. I got that like unfuckwittable.
Yeah,
because he was just
it
like
was contagious swag.
Yeah, and especially when you see it start working, like he was talking to any girl, like doing like a another just a fearlessness that I feel like I had never really seen anything like it. So I would say my dad leaving, Joe, you know what I'm saying, and then Walt,
big influence.
And I'm sure there are a lot more, but just like these are like very fearless people. I feel like
you got a lot of positive male role models, bro.
Yeah, and I got even more positive women role models probably. Yeah. Like just my mom, like my grandma, the one who raised us. You know what I'm saying? We didn't talk about her much because she just didn't do music, and that's what this was mostly focused on. Yeah. But she's the one who, did everything. We got her to thank for everything that's happened ever in the world.
Yeah, man. Well, look, I think we did what we came to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
This was dope, man. I'm glad I finally got to sit down with you. Yeah. So before we leave, tell the people where they can find you online. Like, what's your Twitter and all that shit?
My Twitter is @Saba, SABA, Pivot, PIVOT. That's my website. That's everything. Saba Pivot. That's what you Google.
And he's all on Spotify. Go listen to the new record, because I'll tell you, it is going to be one of the best listening experiences that you have this year. It is a fantastic record. Young man, you put in a lot of work and it paid off. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
So yeah, go find this man. Follow him. He's gonna have a big career. As you guys know, my name is Lee. Some of you might know me as Intuition. My Twitter is @itsintuition. That's across all social media. And this is Skullcandy. You Feel Me. That's the name of the show. If you guys want some of these headphones, listen after the show for a discount code. That's how we slang this corporate product. You feel me? Nice. Other than that, thank you for your time, man. I appreciate it. And I'll see you up there performing. I look forward to it. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to You Feel Me. If you want to hear more, go to skullcandy.com/music. Want a pair of headphones like the ones we used for today's episode? As a special thanks to our listeners, we're giving you 30% off your next Skullcandy order with the promo code MUSICYOUCANFEEL. That's MUSICYOUCANFEEL. Subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast app now to stay up to date on our latest episodes.